After 60, you don't have time to keep living for everyone else. Stop explaining yourself. Stop saying yes when you mean no. Stop wasting years on people who barely make time for you. Your time is getting more valuable, not less. And these are 7 things you should stop doing with it. The first thing to stop doing is explaining every choice you make. This sounds simple. It isn't. Most of us have spent a lifetime explaining ourselves. To parents, to bosses, to spouses, to children, to friends, sometimes even to people we don't particularly like. Why did you retire? Why are you still working? Why did you move to Florida? Why would you leave Florida? Why don't you travel more? Why are you spending money on travel? Why don't you see the kids more often? Why don't the kids visit you? There always seems to be another question. And when you're younger, you may feel like you owe people a good answer. You want them to understand. You want them to know you thought it through. You want them to agree that you're making the right decision. But after a while, you notice something. Some people aren't asking because they want to understand you. They've already decided what they think. They're just waiting to see if you'll defend yourself. You don't have to. You can listen. You can consider good advice. You can even change your mind. That's not weakness. But you don't have to turn every personal decision into a town hall meeting. Maybe you want to sell the big house because you're tired of cleaning rooms nobody uses. Maybe you don't want to sell it because you still love sitting on the same porch you've sat on for 30 years. Maybe you want Christmas at your house. Maybe you're finally tired of cooking for 14 people while everybody else watches football. Both are allowed. That's one of the things age should give us. Not stubbornness. Perspective. The Stoics understood that other people's opinions belong to other people. You can behave well. You can be fair. You can explain yourself clearly. And someone can still think you're wrong. Let them. I know that's easier to say than to do. Especially when it's one of your children. A stranger's opinion is easy to ignore. Your daughter's opinion can stay in your head all afternoon. But even the people who love you don't get to live your life for you. Sometimes a complete explanation is simply saying that you've thought about it and this is what works for you. Then leave it there. You don't have to win the conversation. You don't have to send another text at 11:30 that night because you just thought of a better argument. I've done versions of that. Most of us have. Nothing good happens in the 4th paragraph of an angry text message. Put the phone down. Make some coffee. Go outside. Let somebody disagree with you. The world will keep turning. And you may discover that peace feels better than being understood by everybody. The second thing to stop doing is always being the one who keeps a relationship alive. This one gets complicated after 60. Because your circle changes. People move away. People get sick. Friends become caregivers. Someone loses a spouse and disappears for a while. Your children have jobs and marriages and children of their own. Life gets crowded. So I don't believe in that advice that says if somebody doesn't call you, just cut them off. Real life isn't that simple. Sometimes good people are overwhelmed. Sometimes somebody you love is barely keeping their own head above water. Give people grace. But also pay attention. There's a difference between someone going through a difficult season and a relationship that has been one-sided for 10 years. You know the kind. You're always the one who calls. You're always the one who asks about dinner. You're always the one who remembers the birthday. You're always the one who says we should get together sometime. And eventually you start wondering what would happen if you stopped. That's not a pleasant question. But sometimes it's an important one. Because affection shouldn't feel like an application process. You shouldn't have to keep proving that you're worth someone's time. That doesn't mean you stop loving them. It doesn't mean you become bitter. And it certainly doesn't mean you play some silly game where you ignore them so they'll chase you. You're too old for that nonsense. It simply means you stop forcing what isn't being returned. You leave the door open. You just stop standing in the doorway all day. That's a very Stoic thing to do. You take responsibility for your part. You don't try to control theirs. Call because you genuinely want to call. Invite someone because you'd enjoy seeing them. But don't make your peace depend on whether they respond exactly the way you hoped. And while you're doing that, notice the people who do show up. The friend who calls on Sunday morning. The neighbor who brings your trash can up because they know your knee has been bothering you. The sister who sends you a ridiculous picture and somehow knows exactly when you needed it. The old coworker who still meets you for breakfast even though neither of you has worked together in 12 years. Those people matter. We can become so focused on the person who doesn't call that we overlook the person who does. Don't do that. At this age, a handful of genuine relationships is worth more than a room full of acquaintances. Take care of the people who make room for you. And make room for them too. The third thing to stop doing is saying yes when you already know you want to say no. You know this moment. Somebody asks you for something. And before they've even finished asking, your stomach has already answered. Then your mouth says yes. Maybe it's another family gathering you don't want to attend. Maybe someone wants you to watch the grandchildren again. You love your grandchildren. You'd also like one Saturday where nobody spills apple juice on anything. Both things can be true. Maybe somebody wants to borrow money. Maybe you're asked to volunteer for something because apparently retirement means everyone assumes your calendar is completely empty. So you say yes. Then you spend the next 3 days irritated about it. Here's the uncomfortable part. Sometimes the person you're angry with isn't the person who asked. You're angry with yourself because you knew what you wanted to say. You just didn't say it. A lot of us were raised to believe that being a good person meant being agreeable. Don't make trouble. Help people. Keep the family together. Be nice. Those are not bad values. But taken too far, they can turn into a life where everybody else's comfort comes before your own. And eventually resentment shows up. A calm no is often kinder than a resentful yes. You don't need a speech. You don't need to list 7 reasons. You don't need to invent a doctor's appointment. You can simply say you can't do it this time. Somebody may be disappointed. That's okay. Disappointment isn't an emergency. This is where Stoicism becomes practical. You control whether you're respectful. You do not control whether somebody likes your answer. Those are 2 different jobs. Do your job. Let them do theirs. And remember that your energy isn't what it was at 30. That's not an insult. It's reality. If you spend all day doing something you didn't want to do, you may need the next day to recover from it. So your yes costs more now. That means it should mean more too. Say yes to the people you love. Say yes to things that matter. Say yes when you truly want to help. But stop saying yes because you're terrified that one honest no will make someone think less of you. If a relationship cannot survive one respectful boundary, the boundary probably wasn't the real problem. The fourth thing to stop doing is replaying old arguments. This one is strange. You can be standing in your kitchen on a perfectly good Tuesday morning. Coffee is brewing. Sun is coming through the window. Everything is fine. And suddenly you're arguing in your head with someone you haven't spoken to in 11 years. They aren't there. They may be hundreds of miles away. They may not even remember what they said. But there you are, ruining breakfast for both of you. Except they're not there. So really, you're only ruining yours. Human beings are remarkable that way. We can reopen a 20-year-old wound without anybody helping us. Maybe somebody betrayed you. Maybe your brother said something after your mother died that you've never forgotten. Maybe a business partner cheated you. Maybe a friend vanished when you needed them most. Maybe your marriage ended badly. Some things leave marks. I'm not going to tell you to pretend they don't. And I don't like the kind of advice that makes forgiveness sound like a light switch. Just forgive and move on. Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes you forgive someone and still don't want them anywhere near your life. That's allowed. Forgiveness doesn't mean giving somebody access to you again. It doesn't mean saying what happened was okay. Sometimes it simply means deciding that you're tired of carrying it. Seneca wrote a great deal about anger because he understood how easily anger becomes its own punishment. The original event happens once. The memory can happen every morning for 20 years. At some point you have to ask whether this person deserves that much of your remaining life. Probably not. You don't need to call them tonight. You don't need some dramatic reunion. You may never speak to them again. But perhaps the next time that old argument starts playing in your head, you can notice it. There it is again. Same argument. Same lines. Same ending. And then choose not to finish it. Make your coffee. Feed the dog. Turn on the baseball game. Go live the Tuesday they're no longer entitled to ruin. If there's something you've been carrying for years and you're ready to give it less space in your life, leave one word in the comments. Enough. That's all. No story required. Just enough. Because there comes a point when protecting your peace matters more than proving that you had a right to be angry. The fifth thing to stop doing is treating your age like something you need to apologize for. America is funny about getting older. We all hope to do it. Then we spend a fortune trying to make sure nobody notices. There are creams, procedures, supplements, programs, hair products, exercise machines that somehow always end up holding laundry. There's nothing wrong with wanting to look good. Take care of yourself. Exercise if you can. Wear clothes you like. Get your hair done. Use the moisturizer. Please use sunscreen. But there's a difference between caring for yourself and fighting yourself. You're not supposed to look 30 at 70. You already did 30. You were probably busy when it happened. You had bills. Maybe children. A mortgage. A job you weren't sure you liked. You don't need to go back. Your face has changed. Your body has changed. Maybe your knees make noises they didn't used to make. Maybe you walk into a room and forget why you went in there. Then you walk back out and remember. Then you walk back in. That's practically exercise. Some changes are funny. Some aren't. Health problems are real. Losing strength is real. Watching your body become less reliable can be frightening. Stoicism doesn't ask you to pretend otherwise. It asks you to work with reality instead of wasting your life arguing with it. You cannot negotiate with the calendar, but you can take care of the body you have today. Lift something safely. Get your checkups. Take the medication. Wear the hearing aids if you need them. Use the handrail. There is no medal for pretending you can still do something the way you did at 45. And please don't measure your life against somebody 30 years younger. They have youth. Good for them. You have things they can't buy yet. Perspective. Experience. A much better sense of which problems actually matter. You've survived losses you once thought you couldn't survive. You've made mistakes and lived long enough to understand them. You've probably stopped caring about a few things that used to keep you awake at night. That's not decline. Some of that is wisdom. So yes, take care of yourself. But stop insulting the person in the mirror for having the nerve to age. That person got you here. Treat them with a little respect. The sixth thing to stop doing is saving every good thing for later. A lot of American homes have something nobody is allowed to use. Maybe it's the good dishes. Maybe it's a bottle of wine. Maybe it's a set of towels that apparently exists only to impress guests. Maybe it's a shirt you've been saving for somewhere special. We do this with experiences too. Someday we'll take that trip. Someday we'll visit that old friend. Someday we'll go back to Yellowstone. Someday we'll spend a month near the beach. Someday we'll finally learn to play guitar. Someday is a very comfortable word. It lets us feel like we have a plan without actually putting anything on the calendar. When you're 30, you can get away with that for a while. After 60, someday deserves a little more scrutiny. That doesn't mean spending recklessly. Your retirement account still matters. Medical bills are real. The roof will eventually decide it needs money. I'm not suggesting you sell the house and buy a red Corvette because Seneca told you life is short. Seneca did not tell you to buy a Corvette. But there is a middle ground between being responsible and postponing your entire life. Take the weekend trip. Drive to the little town you've always passed on the interstate. Go see the friend. Buy tickets to the baseball game. Order the pie. Call your brother. Sit on the porch for an hour even though the garage needs cleaning. The garage will still be there tomorrow. It has nowhere to go. And use the good dishes. Seriously. If you've been protecting a dinner plate since 1994, I think you've done your duty. Life is the special occasion. That sounds sentimental. But the older you get, the less sentimental it feels. Because eventually you start noticing how many ordinary moments became memories without announcing themselves first. Saturday breakfast. A road trip. Your spouse laughing at something stupid. Your kids running through the house. A dog asleep beside your chair. You didn't know those were the important moments while they were happening. They just looked like Tuesday. That's the trick. A lot of life looks ordinary while you're living it. So don't wait for some perfect occasion to enjoy what's already here. And that brings us to the last thing. Stop acting like you have unlimited time. Nobody enjoys hearing that. I don't particularly enjoy saying it. But pretending otherwise doesn't buy us another day. The Stoics kept mortality close for a reason. Memento mori. Remember that you will die. That sounds dark until you understand what it's for. It's not meant to make you afraid of life. It's meant to stop you from sleeping through it. If you truly remembered that your time was limited, some things would immediately become less important. That argument on Facebook. The neighbor who doesn't mow his lawn the way you'd like. The person who made a rude comment at Thanksgiving 3 years ago. The need to have the final word. Who cares? You have mornings left. How many? Nobody knows. That's true at 20. It simply becomes harder to ignore at 70. And there is something strangely freeing about admitting it. You stop treating every inconvenience like a crisis. You stop waiting for the perfect year. You stop assuming you'll eventually say the thing that needs saying. Say it. I love you. I'm sorry. Thank you. I miss you. I'm proud of you. Those aren't complicated sentences. Yet people carry them around for years. If someone matters to you, tell them while they can still hear it. If there's something you genuinely want to do, look at what's actually stopping you. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's health. Maybe you have responsibilities that can't simply be abandoned. Those are real. But maybe it's something smaller. You're afraid you'll look foolish. You're afraid to go alone. You're afraid people will wonder why someone your age is doing it. Let them wonder. You're 67. You don't need permission to take a pottery class. You don't need permission to learn Spanish badly. You don't need permission to dance at a wedding. You don't need permission to start writing down your family stories. And you certainly don't need permission to enjoy your own life. Maybe you won't climb Everest. Fine. It's crowded anyway. There are smaller adventures. Drive somewhere you've never been. Try a restaurant where you can't pronounce half the menu. Plant tomatoes and complain about the squirrels. Take your grandson fishing. Teach somebody how to make your mother's recipe. Sit outside when the weather is good. Watch a baseball game all the way through without feeling guilty that you weren't productive. Rest counts too. This isn't about turning the rest of your life into a checklist. That's just another form of pressure. It's about being there for it. Actually there. Because after 60, time doesn't become less valuable. It becomes more valuable. That's why some things simply aren't worth the price anymore. Explaining yourself to everybody. Keeping one-sided relationships alive by yourself. Saying yes when you mean no. Having the same argument in your head for 15 years. Being embarrassed that you've gotten older. Saving every good thing for a someday that hasn't been promised. And living as if you'll always have another chance. You don't have to fix all of that tomorrow. That would be exhausting. Pick one. Maybe tomorrow you don't explain a decision that doesn't require an explanation. Maybe you let someone else make the next phone call. Maybe you say no politely and then resist the urge to send a paragraph explaining why. Maybe when an old resentment shows up during breakfast, you refuse to give it the whole morning. Maybe you put on the shirt you've been saving. Maybe you call someone you've been thinking about. Maybe you just sit outside with a cup of coffee and notice that you're still here. That's enough for one day. I think one of the gifts of getting older is realizing that peace is usually much less dramatic than we imagined. It isn't winning every argument. It isn't finally getting everyone to understand you. It isn't having the perfect family or the perfect retirement. Sometimes peace is your phone sitting on the kitchen counter and knowing you don't have to answer it right now. Sometimes it's saying no without spending the evening feeling guilty. Sometimes it's realizing you haven't thought about that old argument in 3 weeks. Sometimes it's eating dinner alone and discovering that alone doesn't automatically mean lonely. Sometimes it's looking in the mirror and no longer wishing you were the person you were 20 years ago. You had your time being that person. Now you get to be this one. And this person knows a few things. You know that most arguments eventually disappear. You know money matters, but time matters more. You know some people stay and some don't. You know bodies change. You know plans fail. You know grief comes without asking. And if you've lived long enough, you also know something else. Life keeps surprising you. A phone call you didn't expect. A new friend at 70. A grandchild asking you a question nobody has asked in years. A beautiful morning after a terrible week. A reason to laugh when you were certain you wouldn't. That's why I don't think Stoicism after 60 should be about becoming cold or detached. Quite the opposite. It's about becoming more selective. Less energy for nonsense. More attention for what matters. Less time trying to impress people. More time with people you love. Less arguing with reality. More living inside it. Less someday. More today. And maybe that's the real goal. Not to stop caring. To finally become very careful about what deserves your care. So if you're over 60, I'd like to ask you something. What is one thing you've stopped wasting your time on as you've gotten older? Put it in the comments. Not because I need another comment on a video. Because somebody who is 45 may read what you write and learn something 15 years earlier than we did. And that would be worth something. If you enjoy conversations like this about Stoicism, getting older, and learning how to live with a little more peace, you can subscribe and come back for the next one. Until then, take care of your time. You can't save it, but you can decide what deserves it.